Hey, what's up guys? So the new firmware update that recently came out for the Max360, it's supposed to really improve the BSM filtering, it came out 2 days ago and a bunch of us had had a chance to test it now. Myself, I had a chance to test it out for the first time this morning. And in this video, I want to go ahead and share you guys the kind of initial impressions that we're seeing across the board in terms of both the effectiveness of the new filter as well as some testing has been done in terms of performance. So let's start with the filtering. In short, it looks like we have a new king in terms of BSM filtering. The new BSM filter is now able to filter out Acuras and your GM vehicles, including your Chevys, Buicks, GMC, Cadillac, etc. It's really impressive. I was driving around with it today, and it was unbelievably refreshing to have a detector that can actually filter out Acuras, for example. We haven't actually had that before. I mean, I was driving around earlier, and my Stinger VIP, in the most aggressive filtering options, was alerting to an Acura up ahead of me, while the Max360 was dead silent. Now I was wondering, is it on? Is it working properly? I passed a speed sign at the same time on the side of the road that was locked out, and the detector was alerting to the locked out speed sign. It was showing me one signal locked out, but it wasn't alerting to the Acura in front of me. That was pretty remarkable. Now, one of the questions that we all have is, of course, how is Escort doing it, and is there any sort of impacts to performance? You can always dial back the sensitivity of a detector super far and make it so weak in terms of performance that it just can't pick up any of the weak BSMs. Like, for example, with the Uniden R3, there's actually just some testing that was recently done with these two guys, which I'll share in just a second. Now, this guy does false to your Acuras and to your GMs. If you run it in highway mode, I'll power it on real quick. If you run it in highway mode in full sensitivity, in that case, yeah, it's going to go off to your Acuras. So I've got it set up here in highway mode. However, if you back it down to city mode like this, you're going to drop the sensitivity from 100% down to just 10% sensitivity. And I found if you do that and you run it in city mode, it actually can filter out Acuras and Hondas in your GM cars. I think, I don't remember the GMs, but it does. I tested it with an Acura. Anyway, doing this, it does become much quieter, but it's because you're dropping down sensitivity so far. You also have more control over the sensitivity levels in advanced. If you run it in maybe 30% K-band sensitivity, it will still false. So kind of the trick with this guy is to drop it to city mode, but that's only 10% sensitivity. Now the question is Escort compromising the performance here to achieve that level of BSM filtering, kind of like what we could do with the R3? Well, the Texas Countermeasure Testing Group actually went out to go test both of these detectors. Here's what they found. So the course that they used, it was a 3-mile long straightaway, and the test course has a couple dips and hills, and so there's kind of different detection zones to where the detector can go off. Now, in short, I'll put the link in the video description to the results, but this guy here running in highway mode with TSR off, K-band filter on, gave about 3 miles of alert distance. So that's the benchmark, right? Great performance. 3 miles of range. Now, what did we see with the Max360? Well, this guy in its basically top performance mode, which is highway mode and TSR off, achieved a little over 1.5 miles of range. So not as good as the R3, but that's kind of what we're expecting. But even in highway mode, it's still able to filter out your Acuras and your GMs. So that's pretty fantastic, right? If we started backing down the sensitivity of the R3, we saw that running it at 30% sensitivity, performance dropped quite a bit, kind of below what the Max360 was doing in highway mode. Dropping the R3 down to just 10% sensitivity dropped the range even further still. Now here's where it gets a little bit weird. The Max360 set to auto mode had the worst range possible. It was below even the Uniden being run at 10% sensitivity. So what we're seeing is auto mode, for whatever reason, drops the performance dramatically. Now, what's a little surprising about this is that Escort says that auto mode is only taking in effect up until about 50 to 55 miles an hour, which means when you're driving in the highway, the detector should automatically switch to full sensitivity. The testing that they did, they were running the detector while driving at 60 to 70 miles per hour, so above kind of the threshold for auto mode. So in theory, it should be operating like highway mode. However, what they're seeing is there's a dramatic drop-off in performance, even when running it at auto mode at speed on the highway above 50 to 55 miles an hour. So that's good to know. So based on that, what we're seeing is, for those of you guys who have a Max360, yes, the firmware update, awesome, it's very effective, and it's doing a great job. Now, as far as the ideal settings, you're going to want to run it in highway mode and TSR off. If you need TSR for the traffic sensors because you're getting the, repeated blasts of K-band on the highway, you can enable it, of course, but you don't actually need it for BSM filtering. And this is actually a little bit different than what we saw with the Max360's, the remote detector. With that detector, it can filter out Acuras as well, but you do have to run it in auto mode instead of highway, and there is going to be a drop in performance when you do that. Duke's actually tested his Max360's and saw that, switching from auto to highway, of course, drops performance. Now, with the Max360, the windshield mount, you don't have to run auto mode in order to filter out the Acuras. And if you run it in highway mode instead of in auto, you are going to be getting better performance. So that seems to be the sweet spot in terms of performance and filtering with the Max360, is again to run it in highway mode and run with TSR off. So for those of you guys who've updated your detector, or you need to, go ahead and do it. And those are the settings that you're going to want to run, because kind of the ideal option here is, wow, it's hot. The ideal, detector is one that can, of course, filter out false alerts while still maintaining, great performance and lots of advanced warning time, right? We don't want to sacrifice performance to the point where it becomes a problem in order to get a quiet detector. We want good performance and good filtering, and that's something that it looks like the Max360 is able to achieve when running it in highway mode and in TSR off. So anyway, just some initial testing from 2 days worth of, results, people sharing their encounters, me driving, and a bunch of other people in the forums, and the results are virtually unanimous that, yes, this is a tremendous update. The worst things I've heard, other than the performance thing in auto mode, is that 1 or 2 people have reported some punch-throughs with some some Acuras or some GM cars, but it's been a very weak, kind of brief alert that comes and goes. Nothing strong and like a heavy blast that we saw before, but even those ones still not nearly to the degree of what we had before. I mean, I was driving around with mine, and it was kind of scarily quiet, to where the only false alerts I were getting were stationary false alerts on the side of the road, or speed signs that I'm approaching up ahead. I mean, I encountered a cop today running K-band, actually right next to a K-band speed sign, and it alerted me to that. So anyways, yeah, this is looking very, very impressive, and we now have, it looks like, a new benchmark in terms of performance. We can knock it for the auto mode reduction in sensitivity, and the fact that it's reducing sensitivity even when you're above 55 miles an hour. That shouldn't be the case according to Escort, but given that we can run it in highway mode very easily and still get excellent filtering, that seems to be the sweet spot. That seems to be the way to go. And with the Max360, it looks like we may have a new benchmark here in terms of effective BSM filtering while still maintaining good performance. So anyway, good job to Escort on this one, and yeah, at the end of the day, it's just super refreshing to have a detector that's actually quiet once again. So anyways, that's the latest on this. If you need a Max360, link in the video description. If you want to read over more of the testing, link in the video description for that as well. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next video.